Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today we have a guy by the name of Matt Hoodie on the show. He's helped 28 people lose 100 pounds or more. He has a degree in dietetics, and he also has a degree in exercise and wellness. He's been featured in a bunch of different publications. He's been featured on TV, such as NBC, ABC, Fox, AZ Central, and many more. One of the things that I love about Matt is that he helps people live a very healthy, very fit lifestyle that actually works. It's actually sustainable, right? Something that you can actually do for the long term. It's not just chicken and rice every meal, right? It works if you're an entrepreneur. It works if you're a business owner, right? It just works, okay? He helps people achieve that goal, which I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of myths out there. And in this show, we're going to debunk a lot of that. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it.
I struggle with binge eating disorder. That's always been my biggest struggle, my biggest vice. When I was a child, my parents would have to lock the fridge and the pantry. I never thought as a dietitian I was gonna have to convince people that their broccoli was not bad for them.
All right, guys, today we have here Matt Hoodie, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate you being on the show, and I'm excited to jump into it. You've done a lot in really the world of fitness and nutrition, and you've built different companies. You're an entrepreneur, and I'm just excited to kind of jump into it and peel back the onion.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to kind of dive in. I mean, we've already been going before we even got started here, but being able to touch on some of this and just get out to more people is always what I'm about. So,
I love that, dude. Well, I'm sure we'll go a bunch of different directions on the show, but I kind of want to just start out with how you got to this point, right? And before the show, we were talking a little bit about the fact that, growing up, you were overweight, right?
Yeah.
And you struggled with that, and you got to a point where, obviously where you are today, and I just kind of want you to kind of walk us through that journey a little bit, how you got to where it is that you're at today. I'm sure it's a long story.
No, definitely. Yeah, I'll just kind of touch on it. I mean, I was always overweight. I always struggled with my relationship with food as a kid. I got bullied a lot in school. I definitely, my mom would kind of take me to get food as something to make me feel better. And I think it kind of all started to manifest there. And as I got older, I just kept gaining weight through school. And the more weight you gain, it kind of snowballs. You stop being social. You stop doing more things, going out and stuff. And you're more insecure. You just don't feel as comfortable with your body. And, you're not comfortable physically speaking, too. You don't want to go out and do a whole lot of stuff. And that all kind of culminated in, I actually started going to school to become a chef. I do a lot of cooking. And that's probably why I do a lot of the macro-friendly cooking. But I went to school to become a chef, and I got sick through my first semester, and I ended up having to go to a doctor, and I had gained like 100 pounds since I had been there last time. So they were like, whoa, you've gained a lot of weight quickly. We want to see if something's wrong with your thyroid or what's going on. And they ran a bunch of blood work, and it turns out my thyroid was okay. I just stopped moving, and I had just been eating way more than I realized. Culinary school, right? First year of culinary school, you're doing a lot of French basics and stuff like that. But my A1C was elevated, and I was right on the borderline of already at that age, already on the borderline of being full-blown diabetic. Wow. And I didn't really know what that meant, so I went home and I kind of Googled diabetes, and you see people losing their vision, losing toes, limbs, things like that, and that just scared the hell out of me. And I've got a pretty obsessive personality, and I kind of looked up and I go, I don't want this to be me, and I clearly am struggling with my relationship with food here, and it's something I need to address. But for right now, let's get me on a different pathway here. And I actually ended up enrolling in dietetics program to be a registered dietitian at ASU, which is kind of like the MD of food. And I just wanted to learn as much as I could. I got on that path. I started losing weight. I lost about 130 pounds in all, and I just kind of fell in love with helping other people, right? Because as you start to lose the weight, people start to ask you, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I really fell in love with that process of kind of deep diving into the reasons behind why others are gaining weight, because it's all different. It's different for all of us, right? My reason is not going to be your reason, but helping to walk people through that process, both from a perspective of a dietitian, but also of a coach and somebody who can counsel them through some of those struggles. So I just fell in love with it. And then when I graduated from school, I opened up my first gym up here in North Scottsdale. I've had that for 7 years now. That's called Transform Scottsdale. And it is actually a destination that kind of specializes in helping overweight and obese. We work with all populations, but that's definitely our specialty. And then the last couple of years, I really got into the one-on-one coaching and working with people in that capacity.
That's awesome. So you went and did the dietitian thing before you did the fitness thing. Like, walk me through that.
Right.
'Cause I feel like we were talking a little bit before the show, right? You've got these fitness people that that maybe think they know a ton about diet, and then you've got these diet people that think maybe they know a ton about fitness.
100%.
And you did both.
I
So
ended up doing both, right?
Yeah.
So I pursued the dietetics degree first, and then I ended up deciding to stay in school and pursue a degree in exercise and wellness, is what they call it at ASU. It's kind of like kinesiology, exercise science, all that wrapped up into one, right? A little bit of gym ownership and all that type of stuff. But that was my second degree. That was after the dietetics. The dietetics was the tough stuff. You got to go deep into the sciences. They also do a really good job, though, of teaching you how to counsel people and how to work with different things. I struggle with binge eating disorder. That's always been my biggest struggle, my biggest vice. When I was a child, my parents would have to lock the fridge and the pantry. When they would leave the house, they would have to lock it up overnight. And that's obviously something that's deep rooted psychologically, right? So it's not just about being able to set macros, right? We kind of joke. There's all these calculators online, right? There's tons of health and fitness professionals who struggle with their weight. They know the blueprint. They know how to do it. It doesn't mean just because you have the information doesn't mean you're going to be able to execute it. Sometimes we need a little bit more support in certain areas than what someone else might need. But that person might need a little more support in another area, right?
Very true.
So it's understanding, being able to identify that in people. But a lot of that, you're right, a lot of that came from the dietetic side of things. Very little of my coaching is from the exercise wellness side of things. That more has to do with the gym and all of that stuff.
So what's more important? I mean, I want to we're going to dive deep.
Yeah, yeah.
But I will start out with some more of the basic stuff. Like, what's more important, diet or fitness, right? You
Diet.
Hear, okay.
It's not even, I mean, people get mad, right? And, people are going to get upset if you just give someone's always going to be mad.
Sure.
Someone on the other side is going to be mad. But without a question, diet.
Yeah. If it was that simple, right?
For the purpose that the majority of people are pursuing an improvement in their health or their physique, diet. Are there some extreme examples of athletes and competitive people and things like that where you could argue, in the other direction? Yeah, you could argue, that regardless of their diet, they need to be doing X, Y, and Z. But that's such a small percentage.
Right.
For the majority of us, what we want to achieve, right? We want to live a long life. We want to be healthy on the inside. We want to look good on the outside. Diet is going to trump the exercise.
And I love what you said there. We want to live a long life, right? And I think you said in another podcast, I think it was Tyson Smith, but you said there's like these three main things that everybody's after, right?
Yeah.
In life, and I think wasn't it to live a long life, spend time with family, friends. What would you say?
Right. So you have to marry the two together, right? And I think we've gotten to a point where we divide it into health and looking good. And my goal with coaching people is to show them those two things can be achieved simultaneously, because you really only have people on one side for the most part. You have people who you need to eat, non-GMO, organic. You need to avoid this, avoid this, avoid this, avoid this. And then you got these people over here. Don't worry about that. Just hit your macros and you're going to be fine. And the approach I use of flexible dieting kind of brings the two of them together, and it allows you to get that longevity, that time with friends and family, but in a functional way that you can use your body. You can go for a hike. You can go and do things, right? And you can look your best at the times that we want to look our best, because it's okay to want to look and feel your best. We need to encourage that rather than going the other direction.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I couldn't agree more. What are some of the misconceptions that people have with dieting? You talk about being able to, and there's this kind of whole thing around, flexible dieting, right?
Yes.
Talk to me about that a little bit more, and like what are some misconceptions about
So
that?
I think the number one misconception is the goal is to eat as much crap as possible. And that's kind of what there's IIFYM, or if it fits your macros, which is all that they care about is proteins, carbs, fat, macronutrients, right? Or calories only, right? Calories in, calories out. And those people take it too far. They disregard things like fiber. They disregard micronutrients, sodium intake, right? Things that we need to be aware of from a longevity perspective, right? And they focus and they hyper-focus on what's going to affect your physique. And from a physique perspective, they're right. That you can absolutely achieve whatever physique you'd like with whatever food choices you would like. But we don't want to try to go to the extreme, right? We don't want to try to play devil's advocate and say, how many Pop-Tarts can I fit in this week and still lose weight, right? It's okay to have indulgences, and we don't want to label foods as good or bad. But at the same time, we want to be promoting positive health effects, which means the majority of your diet is still going to need to come from good quality whole foods. Now, people who watch my story on Instagram, they're going to be like, well, all I ever see is this. Well, yeah, you don't want to see the boring. I mean, I'm not going to post the boring meals. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. There are meals that are just kind of basic. Do I enjoy everything? Yes. Am I ever eating a 2-day-old Tupperware dish of chicken and rice? No. I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to not season my food. I'm always going to make something I enjoy. But there's a lot of repetition. right? There are things I love eating, but I might eat them 4 or 5 times a week because it makes it a lot easier to stay on track. So I think it's bringing those two philosophies and showing people, look, you can do both. You can be the healthiest version of yourself, be the most functional version of yourself, like you said, to enjoy time with your family, and the best looking version of yourself without having to kill yourself. It doesn't have to be restrictive. It doesn't have to be something where you cut out carbs, you go keto, you go to some extreme. We can figure out a way to do that so that you're happy in all three aspects all of the time, instead of just when you're giving up socializing or giving up vacations or outside of January through February 13th, right? Right. So that's kind of my goal is to bring all those together for people.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of people need that, right? They need to understand. I think there's so many. I mean, even for me, when I was growing up, I always thought of the extremes, right? I thought of the keto. I thought of these massive extremes of when I was young, I did some bodybuilding stuff. I never did a competition, but I was going to do a competition. I have bad knees, so I wasn't able to actually do that. But I got real big and buff and strong, right?
Yeah.
And it's chicken and rice, right?
Yeah.
And that was back then what everybody said, right? And egg whites. I mean, I do egg whites out of the carton, right?
Yeah.
And so nowadays there's so much different crap that you hear. You almost don't know what to even believe anymore.
And that's where we've gone so far, right? I mean, there is a diet that is literally carnivore now. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah.
They're literally vilifying fruits and vegetables. I never thought as a dietitian I was going to have to convince people that their broccoli was not bad for them. Right? But they literally, even that diet has vilified fruits and vegetables now, and fiber, things that we have massive observational studies over decades, hundreds of thousands, millions of participants across multiple meta-analyses where we can clearly see, yes, eating more fruits and vegetables has a positive outcome on nearly all health markers. And you have still come up with a way to vilify that. So at this point, everyone's trying to, like you said, go to the extremes. Everyone's trying to make a buck with whatever their extreme is. And they're going to do that by scaring people away from one thing towards their thing. And that's one of the first things I do. I go in and I kind of bust a lot. I do a lot of myth busting. And I go, look, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. We need to focus on this, this, and this for you. Once you understand kind of what those main points are for that person, and then you bring in the nutritional basics and you lay down that foundation of an education, and you bring all that together where it's personalized and you're teaching them at the same time, but they're losing weight or whatever their goal is, right? So they're seeing a physical transformation, but they're also building up the ability to maintain that on their own because they're going to have an understanding of how they're doing it, and it's being done in a way that they can keep doing even during right now, right? We're shooting this right after Thanksgiving. How many people probably fell off track this week? Because their plan that they had in place, whether it was keto or whatever it may have been, well, you know what? You get there with your family, everybody's drinking a little bit. All right, you know what? It's Thanksgiving. I'm just going to enjoy myself because you don't know how to live the life you want to live in a way that is also conducive to those other three things we mentioned, which is your most efficient and your longest living and happiest self.
Yeah, so when you're in your normal routine, it's somewhat simple to do, right?
Like you said.
Anytime something happens or something comes up, you just totally fall off. It's like there's no happy. It's not, you can't stay consistent.
You can't stay consistent with the extremes, and that's the problem with things like meal plans, like set meal plans. You said chicken and broccoli, right? Well, what happens if Thursday now rolls around and meal 4 is supposed to be chicken and broccoli, and you're at your grandma's for Thanksgiving? Right? You're gonna pull out your Tupperware dish and turn? No, of course you're not. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't. That's insane. That's crazy, and it's so unnecessary. That's the part that's so frustrating. Is people go, well, he's got this coming up, so he doesn't need to be doing that. He thinks he needs to be doing that. No, but nobody needs to be that restrictive. I promise you.
Yeah. Well, and you're living proof of that, and I think you helped a lot of people achieve that. I mean, looking at, I was going through your Instagram and just seeing, where you came from. I think you posted like a picture of you from when you were growing up, to where you're at today. I mean, and obviously to have studied it and all the scientific research behind it. It's not just a theory anymore, right? It's like, hey, this works.
I mean, I went through it myself. Like I said, I lost just under 130 pounds. I've now helped 28 other individuals lose over 100 pounds. And honestly, the thing that I kind of pride myself on is how many of my people keep the weight off. Yeah. Right? I always say we don't have a weight loss problem in the U.S. We have a problem keeping off the weight that we lose. Every person who comes through my door at the gym, every person who reaches out to me online and works with me one-on-one online has lost the weight before. Very few people reach out to me who go, I've never lost weight. Most people have lost it before, and yet they're back reaching out to me or walking into my gym. And it's like, well, however you lost it clearly didn't work through whatever life sent your way. right? And we lose weight in a way that you nailed it. It's only sustainable when life is just going along fine. And that's why everyone, I was making really good progress in Jan. Well, you're making really good progress because everyone else was in it together. We're eating out less, we're drinking less, we're not eating sweets. But then the moment Valentine's Day rolls around, the Super Bowl rolls around, whatever it may be for you, your kid's birthday, like do you want to be on keto and have to say no to every slice of birthday cake, or make an additional cake for yourself like, you got to be realistic here. You want to go out on dates on the weekend, you want to go and do things, you want to go to Mexico and have fun and and go do things. How are you going to stay on track with whatever you're doing to get there while you're going through those times? I posted a really interesting study on Instagram the other day, and it showed that 70% of the weight that we gain and carry over from one year to the next, right? Because we gain about a pound a year once we reach 30. And every single person that they saw, that they were studying in this, 70% of the weight on average that these people gained was gained in the 6 weeks at the end of the year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So out of 52 weeks, 70% of it's gained in a 6-week span. They found that another 10 to 20 was gained during vacations. So that's almost 90% of the weight you gain in a year is gained during the holidays or vacations. So if the plan that you have in place doesn't work during either of those things, it's not really doing you any good, because that's not when people tend to slide back, and that's not when people tend to mess up. And that is the advantage to using something like a flexible dieting approach instead of a more restrictive approach, right? Like meal prep or keto, where you have to say no to things, is you can understand how to keep implementing something like that in a scenario like that, whether it's the holidays or vacation.
It's so fascinating. I think that the statistics that you just talked about are really fascinating. You were saying before the show that one of the big things that people don't realize they're doing is they're consuming too much fat without realizing it, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that, and the audience about that, and how you were telling me about how like carbohydrates, for example, if you want to double them, I mean, there's literally
Yeah, and I mean, I'll use the same example, right? And I've never had a person, I think I told you, I've never had a person sit down with me who is consuming too many carbohydrates when they start, and that always blows people away. But probably about half of them say, oh, I know I'm eating too many carbs, right? So, but then once we start kind of keeping track of, because everyone, regardless of who I work with, has to keep track of their food at the beginning.
So they come to you and they tell you,
Yep,
hey, I think I'm eating too many carbs.
I'm eating too
right?
many, I know what my problem is.
Yep.
I'm eating too many carbohydrates.
Got it.
And then we dive into their diet, and without fail, every single person is over-consuming fats. And the reason that happens, and the reason that's possible, is because I gave you the example. If I give you 100 calories of potatoes, and then I want to give you another 100 calories, I've got to give you double the amount of potatoes. Now we got a big pile of 200 calories worth of potatoes. Carbohydrates occupy volume, right? Potatoes, rice, oatmeal. These are things where 200 or 300 calories is going to fill you up and keep you pretty full.
Yeah.
A pound of potatoes is 250 calories. Wow. You eat a pound of potatoes, you're going to be pretty full, no matter what you pair with it, right?
If you've ever wanted to get into wholesaling real estate and you want to learn how to flip contracts and wholesale, right? Maybe you're brand new, maybe you've never wholesaled a deal, or maybe you're even doing a couple of deals a month right now, but you want to learn how to do more. Instead of joining my coaching program or somebody else's coaching program, we're actually looking to hire. So go ahead and message me 480-418-5339 and send me a text message opportunity, okay? So if you want to work with me, you want to work with my incredible team, you want all of our leads, you want all of our systems, all of our processes, everything, right? And I've done about 2,000 wholesale deals in my career, then go ahead, shoot me a text, 480-418-5339, and message me opportunity. And look, especially if you're in my state, okay, the state of Arizona. If you live in Arizona and you want to get into wholesaling, this especially is an opportunity for you, because you can come sit right in this office with my entire team and be a part of one of the biggest wholesaling companies in the country. I look forward to talking to you.
Fats don't work that way. If I take 4 ounces of chicken, that's 100 calories, and I throw a couple tablespoons of oil in the pan before I cook the chicken, that's 250 calories. Now you've got 350 calories of chicken, but you've got the same amount of chicken, or 300 calories, whatever it may be, right? You're around there. That's the biggest issue, is a lot of people think in order to be over-consuming calories, they have to be over-consuming food. Like, you don't understand. My burger didn't have that many calories in it. The problem is they slap that burger face down on a flat top grill that they hit with oil before that burger went down, and it soaked up 2 or 3 tablespoons. And then they took your bun and they hit it with butter before they put it face down on the grill. All right, you just add 3 tablespoons and a couple tablespoons, but you just add 500 calories to a burger that should be 300, 400 at home. So the same size, but it's the same size. And that's the issue, right? They're both 4-ounce burgers. One's 400, one's 900. And that's what really gets people in trouble is they don't know they're over-consuming fats. The reason they think they're over-consuming carbohydrates is actually the reason why we love carbs, because they take up space and they're visible, right? So that's what they see. You don't see fats. If you think about high sources of fat, butter, oil, fatty cuts of meat, fatty cheeses, nuts, right? A handful of almonds is almost as many calories as a Big Mac.
Wow.
Like people don't realize an adult-sized handful of almonds, and you'll get people who will say that's completely false. There's a video on my Instagram that shows you actually doing that. But this is what people don't realize is that you don't have to feel stuffed to have eaten too much energy, right? Energy is very dense in the form of fat, and it doesn't take up space. No fat is high volume. So you're not going to be full, right? You're not going to feel stuffed, but you can still be consuming more energy than what you're burning, which means you're going to be gaining weight. And once we start to identify that, people go, "Oh my God, I never knew how much fat I was eating." I should just take a picture of all the screenshots of texts I have from in the first week and a half. Every client without fail will say, "Why is there so much fat in everything?"
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because now they're paying attention to it, right?
Right.
And they're noticing the fat. And so talk to me about somebody who's maybe, and I get that everybody is, everybody's different, right? I understand that everybody's different, and you got to tailor everything to each individual person. But just kind of talking, maybe down the middle of the field here. What are some things that people can do if their goal is just to lose weight? Like they want to go from 220 pounds to 180 pounds, and they want their clothes to fit better.
The number one thing, and a lot of people aren't going to like this answer, but if you are struggling with weight, it means you're either there for the first time or you're back there again. Which means it's time to lay down, do a little bit of education. The number one thing I would encourage people to do is start keeping track of your food for a short period of time. If this is something that is truly a struggle for you, you'll be willing. Trust me, as someone who's been there before, you'll be willing to make that investment. Now, I want to get in right away. You do not need to track food for the rest of your life. Every single client that works through me one-on-one, the goal is to get them to where they are not tracking their food by the time they finish their transformation. They're eating fully intuitively. But short term, for us to identify what's tripping you up, we got to know what you're actually taking in, or we're not going to know what to fix. So I do tell everyone, and that's the deal breaker. They go, a lot of people go, "I won't track food." And I go, "All right, well, reach back out to me when you're ready to do that for a short period of time." And a lot of them reach back out when that it becomes worth it. Right? Because I told you, we want to educate you. We don't just want to fix the problem. We don't want to put a Band-Aid on it. I can give you a meal plan that completely changes everything you eat, and I can get you from 210 to 180, right? And then you're going to do what? You're going to get down to 180 and go, "Awesome, time to go back to eating the food that I like." And you're going to go right back up, and you'll probably go past 210 this time because you lost it in a way you weren't planning on sticking with. If we can understand what's tripping you up, then we can dialogue and we can say, "Hey man, it's obvious that you're spending a lot of calories on this. Is that something that's really worth it to you?" And a lot of times people go, I had no idea that was doing that to me. No, I don't care. I can go with this and I'll be just as happy. Or people will be like, "You know what? I love my Starbucks this or that every morning." And I go, "Okay, well, you know what? For you, it's worth it. For him, it might not be." Sure. But now we have that understanding of, where can we give and take a little bit, and how can we start to build a diet that's conducive to what you want to see, but also conducive to you being able to live the life you want to live on an everyday basis and being happy with the things you're eating. And within a couple of months, we've got that in a way that you can understand it. And now we start to remove the tracking. And now we start to pull away because now you have you're starting to get an intuitive understanding of what you need to be executing to be working towards the physique you want. But during this, you're losing the weight, right? So that would be my advice to people. It would start with just simply understanding what you're really putting in your body. And really the only way to do that is to short-term keep track of what you're eating. That's going to be, if you can take 1 month and keep track of what you're eating, it will give you so many eye-opening realizations.
I bet.
And that alone, whether you're on your own or if you feel like you need a little bit more support with somebody, that information alone will be able to change your life forever.
Now right? Like
now you know.
Now like you get in the habit of doing anything in life, and then you start to understand it. You're educated now, right? Now I know I eat the same thing for breakfast every day, but if I don't know what I'm putting, once I do that enough times, I
Right.
know, oh, that cup of rice, I know exactly what is in that rice
Yeah.
now. So I can start to go to a restaurant, I understand it, right?
Right. And it might not be worth it for you to cook your 2 eggs and 2 tablespoons of butter. You might be, you know what, I'd rather save 150 calories for something I want later and just use a half a tablespoon.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't even know you were putting that much in, right? There's a lot of things like that where people are giving away stuff they didn't really know, and then they're saying no to things they want that they have this perception are much worse than what they actually are. So now they're frustrated because they feel like they're trying. Well, I turned down this and I turned down this and I'm still gaining weight. And it's like, that's why we need to understand what your biggest pitfalls are and where we need to place the emphasis for you. And it's a short-term thing for the people who are willing to. I mean, it's a couple months. I have quite a few people who have long-term successful transformations they've maintained that they've created in a 3 or 4 month span.
Yeah.
And now they're like Tyson, you mentioned. Now they're out there helping other people with the information. Right? I mean, he's killing it. Not only has he transformed his physique, but he has such an understanding of how he's gone about it that now he's out there helping other people do the same thing and motivating other people. So, I mean, that's
awesome. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? I mean, that's all of our goal is to influence as many people as possible in a positive way. So that's what I would say. I would say the short answer, keep track of what you're actually putting in your body.
No, I think it was a phenomenal answer. I want to ask you, when I was growing up, I remember there always being this talk around, I can't build muscle and lose fat at the same time, right? And I remember hearing it over and over again when I was growing up, right? Because I was always trying to get big, right? That was the goal back then, right? We wanted to get big and strong, right?
Bulk or cut, right?
Bulk or cut, and you could do one, and you would hear people would tell you, right? Hey, you got to bulk first,
right?
And then you can cut, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Is that real? Is that
not
real?
you can. It's not real that you can't build muscle and lose body fat at the same time. Okay. It's a lot easier for people who are in different circumstances than other people. If you have not been working out at all for the last 6 months, the simple fact, the stimulus of you going to the gym and working out, even in a calorie deficit, your body's going to adapt a little bit, right? Because you were asking it to do nothing, and now you're providing it with the stimulus 3-4 times a week, whatever. You will get kind of those initial noob gains. So for that person, it's a lot easier. Someone who has developed their physique over a couple of years, they are probably better off, not necessarily bulking or cutting, but not trying to lose fat while they're trying to build muscle, right? But also at the same time, not leaning in and bulking. I am actually completely opposed to the idea of bulking altogether. It's completely unnecessary. From a scientific perspective, all it leads to is you having to peel off more fat in the end. You end up losing more of the muscle mass you built because you take longer peeling off the fat. But it is definitely possible for somebody to achieve.
Because a lot
both.
of people, they do this you call it the dirty bulk, right?
The dirty bulk. And that's my least. It's so unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah, this idea that you need to be in like a 500 or 800 calorie surplus to be building muscle. We know how much energy it takes to truly synthesize muscle and how much muscle we can really grow. And that's what I try to explain to people. I go, even if you built a quarter pound of muscle a week, quarter pound, which would be virtually insignificant on the scale. That's almost 15 pounds of muscle a year. Yeah. I mean, that would be an insane. You worked out for 5 years. I mean, it obviously doesn't even go at that rate, right? Yeah. Building muscle is going to be so slow because we can only put on so much muscle. So we don't need to provide you with, thousands and thousands and thousands of extra calories per week or even per day. Some people, when they dirty bulk, that's not going towards building muscle. This much of it's going towards building muscle. The rest of it is all just creating more body fat. So that side of it is also not necessary. But I would say unless you're a beginner, you probably should be placing the focus on one or the other. Unless you're either a beginner or you're just getting back into it or something, then you can achieve both simultaneously without having to be too perfect.
Yeah.
If you're developed, you're going to have to be pretty dialed in with everything to achieve both simultaneously.
Talk to me a little bit about like food. We were talking a little bit before the show. We were talking like Chick-fil-A and Cane's and all these different types of food, right? And it kind of goes back to what you were saying a little while ago, but there's so much misconceptions of like, man, I can't eat that particular type of food. Like, I just can't eat it, right?
Absolutely.
And I know for me, there was a season probably about a year ago where I got in a really good, incredible shape, like 8% body fat, maybe 9%, 9% body fat. And I was really strong. And I was eating Chick-fil-A every day of my life, right? I was doing grilled chicken, but I was enjoying it, and I was eating Chick-fil-A every day, right? So talk to me a little bit about like food and how that.
I am completely against, and this probably comes more from my dietetics background and my background to understand working with a lot of people with anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, things like that. I am completely against the vilification of any food altogether. There is absolutely no food in the world that is so terrible for your health that you can never have it. There's nothing. It really does come down to the sort of anything in moderation argument. Even foods that we vilify because they have saturated fat in them, and that's going to, too much saturated fat causes heart disease. Yeah, but we need a certain amount of saturated fat. So it doesn't mean just because something is, the danger isn't, it's in the dose, right? So it's the overconsumption of things like that. The problem is we can find correlative studies all over the place where you call up 1,000 people and ask them if they go get fast food 3 times a week, and then ask them what their BMI is. Well, the average person going to get fast food 3 times a week is probably also not going to the gym very often. They're probably also not going for a whole lot of runs very often. They're probably not doing a lot of other things. Does it mean that the fast food itself is causing all of their problems? No. Does it mean if I go get fast food 3 times in 1 week, I'm going to suddenly have any negative health effects? No. But you can run a study that says that. And that's one of the other big issues is there's a lot of correlative research that gets put out there. The joke I always make is if you wanted to, you could make a study that shows that doing yoga decreases your risk of lung cancer, right? If you called 1,000 people up and said, do you do yoga at least once a week? And then, have you ever been diagnosed with lung cancer? I guarantee you the group that does yoga at least once a week would be diagnosed with lower occurrence of lung cancer. Why? Because probably the average person doing yoga is not smoking as much.
Sure.
They're probably running more. They're probably eating a healthy. You could probably link it to a whole bunch of cancers, right? Does that mean yoga is preventing cancer? No. And a lot of people get caught up in research like that. And I saw a study or I saw a headline that said this. You really need to be able to deep dive into that stuff a little bit better and understand no single food is going to do you in. It's your overall habits, and it's understanding that the majority of your choices do need to be good quality, healthful foods. And there's nothing wrong with a Chick-fil-A grilled chicken versus you grilling the chicken at home, right? And you'll have people just because it's a fast food restaurant, the perception. That's the problem. It's what's behind the food. It's not the perception, right? If that's a piece of chicken and it gets cooked in whatever or form of oil or doesn't, and this is a piece of chicken, just because one of them came out of a box, it doesn't change what's in the item. Just because it came out of a bag or it came out of a box, it's still understanding what's actually inside of the food that should make your determination. And even then, it's okay to have stuff that's not perfect, right? Like that's a part of life. Food is a part of our life. Food is a part of our culture. Food is a part of our social environment, and to treat it like it's only sustenance, and even for the people who do treat it like it's only sustenance, they go over more than what you need to, but to treat it like it's only sustenance is just ridiculous, and you're not going to have any long-term success.
Sure.
Right? You will always end up where you were before because you were saying no to too many things that you wanted. And you need to find a way that you can say no to say no to the things that you don't really care about and say yes to the things that you really do want. Right. Otherwise, just like this past week when so many people fell off, you're just going to fall off. And then what? Christmas is how many weeks around the corner? 4 weeks around the corner. How many holiday parties are in between that? Yeah. You're going to stay on, are you going to stay in New Year's Eve? You're going to take your your significant other out on New Year's Eve. Are you going to stay on a meal plan New Year's Eve? No. And there's just so many occurrences where it's just not realistic. And the vilification of foods only makes people more anxious for those circumstances and more nervous. Yeah. And then you get people who start turning down social situations. And now they have to choose between looking the way you want and being able to live the life that you want. And that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, and maybe you don't have any, but like, what are your thoughts on, I watched a documentary a couple years ago. It's talking about, going vegan, right?
Yeah.
And the whole documentary, and it's kind of to what you just said, I guess, where people will hone in on a particular study or a particular thing.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But, there's so many different things out there like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So, again, cutting out an entire food group is never going to be necessary. There is no food group that is so bad for you that you can't consume any of it. Veganism and some of the studies on veganism, there's nothing wrong. I would say about 5% of my clients are vegan, about 15% of them are vegetarian. Okay. I work with vegan clients. You do have to modify your protein intake a little bit. It's important to understand some of the vitamin deficiencies that are prevalent, but not in everyone. There are plenty of vegans who get all their vitamins, they get all their protein. It's entirely possible to do, and that is each person's choice. It by no means in itself is going to make you a healthier person. Might it cause you to stop over consuming things that were harming your health? Yes, but I could also do that without going vegan. It's a more simplistic way to look at it, right? And I think that's one of the reasons people like, going vegan or going keto or something. It's very simple, right? I'm going to remove carbohydrates. I'm going to remove animal products. That's not hard. I don't have to get an app. Yep. I don't have to track anything. I don't have to do it. And you know what? If for you that's what you need, and that level of simplicity is what you need, and it is honestly something you can live with for the rest of your life. Yeah. But really have that conversation with yourself and be like, am I ready to to turn down every, all the dairy that I get offered again. I'm going to have to order a special. And if you're okay with that, go for it. That's awesome. I'm beyond I'm not there. And most of us aren't, right? Most of us, and same thing. The example with your kid's birthday cake, right? Are you going to make a keto cake for yourself? Your daughter comes around, hey Dad, have a slice of cake. Sorry, Dad, can't have any carbs today. Like it's not realistic for most of us to live life like that.
Not at all.
Right.
No.
So
what about like you see guys like the Liver King, right? Like like what are you talk about?
It's
like
great for getting views,
right? Of course,
you want a lot of views.
Great marketing, right? I will
great
say,
marketing.
Great marketing. I was watching a video, Jesse James West. He was at like Liver King's house.
Yeah. He's everybody.
Yeah, 10 million views. Right?
Yep.
And but like, what are your actual thought? Is it like
those are some of them. No, that's the extreme.
Okay.
Those are some of those toxic people in the industry.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you and I discussed it before we got on here. It's the people who are willing to say extreme things that they're polarizing enough that they're going to be the ones featured. And unfortunately, social media is going to push them to the top, and the media is going to push them to. And it is what it is. It's not exciting if you're not making extreme statements. He knows that. I think half the stuff someone like him says, I think he knows he's doing it just to get people to comment that he's being ridiculous, right? Because I mean, who's going to start eating raw liver on a regular basis and completely, aside from the stuff where he tells you to give up fiber, stuff that actually has a harmful effect, right? Stuff that's going to increase people's risk of cardiovascular disease, stuff that's going to increase risk of a myriad of other health factors. Someone like him someone like him or Carnivore MD or somebody is really harming the public, and they're doing it for profits. And I don't know. I often wonder if someone in that situation is just so deluded in their own thinking. I don't know how you could possibly be willing to say the things they're saying, knowing that you're going to cause large-scale health crises down the road for people, just for money. Like to me, that's so. They must really be buying into what they're saying.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right? I think in any industry, anything that we talk about, where I think you can get to a point where you can start to believe your own crap. Right?
We all go into our own echo chambers now, right? It's when people look for research, right? I always get a kick out of it. Well, I found this study that backs up what I say. Don't go look for a study to back up what you're saying. Go look for a study to refute what you're saying. If you can't find one, you're probably in a pretty good place. Wow. Like people always love to go and find a study. Well, I found this study that was done in Minnesota that backs up what I'm saying. Okay, now Google and see how many studies you can find that go against what you're saying. Whenever somebody challenges me on something, I'm going to go look at the points that they're using to challenge me. I'm not going to go try and find stuff to defend. You can always find stuff.
Sure.
Like I mentioned, you can really run a study however you want to get whatever outcome you want. Yep. People love to vilify big corporations for doing. Oh well, Corn did this, and there's plenty of people on the other side who manipulate studies and manipulate research too. It's on both ends. Why would we not? It's going to make our points a lot easier to prove. But if you really want to know if what you're doing has any potential risk factors, go looking for stuff, research studies that refute what you're saying instead of backing up. And I think that's how we start to get out of our echo chambers. Because now if people start to say things that we don't like, we just leave. We just go, I don't want to hear from you. I'm going to go talk to these people who believe me. And all that it leads to is these two groups that are more. Now we're all in our own little groups of carnivore and keto, and we're all like against each other. And I'll never forget, I did a television spot about 2 years ago, and obviously I'm completely against keto or any other unsustainable means of weight loss. And it was me basically talking about why I don't do keto with people and why I don't promote it and why it doesn't add any benefit to weight loss. And that's the other thing people don't realize. A lot of people, I know it's unhealthy, but it's the only way to lose weight. No, there's zero fat loss benefits. Let's just be 100% clear. But a woman had called my gym, and she had ripped into me for about 2 minutes about how she lost 60 pounds on keto, and how does that make me feel that she lost 60 pounds doing this thing, and I was completely wrong because she had lost. I wanted to call her back and be like, I'm so proud of you for losing 60 pounds. Like, we're not against each other here. We should all be trying to work together and help each other, and right? But we need to make sure that the way we're doing it is healthy for the people that we are helping.
And healthy and sustainable. I love what you said, right?
That's the word right there, is what you're doing sustainable. Because if it's not, it's going to fail during the vacations, during the holidays, during the stressful weeks, during when a family member gets sick, during all those, and that's when we slide back. Don't slide back during January when you can be meal prepping every Sunday. But are you meal prepping every Sunday right now? No, you're not. You're just trying to enjoy the holidays right now. So do something that you're going to have an understanding so that you don't have to get back on track in January, right? We talked on it at the beginning of the podcast. 70% of your weight's going to be gained for this year in the next 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Do something before the next five weeks occur. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Instead of being like, I know I should do this, but I'll get on it in January. You're just going to be further behind in January.
Yeah.
And you'll get some of it off, but you probably won't get all of it off. And next year, you'll be in a little worse position going through the same thing again and saying, I'm going to get back on it in January. Do something that is sustainable, or you're never going to find balance. You're always going to be going back and forth between I'm not happy with how I look or I'm not happy with my social life.
Yeah.
And it's just this endless battle.
Why do you think Americans in particular are so overweight? We were talking a little bit before the show. You go to some other countries, and I've been to other countries where you don't see as many unhealthy and overweight people. In America, I think what were the statistics you said?
Definitely, yeah. So we're about to cross over 75% of people in America are overweight,
right?
And we're right on the edge of a third of people are obese.
And so why is that in America? In your opinion, obviously.
So I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of added calories that are in things. And honestly, I know a lot of people want to go added sugars, but it's not added sugars. Start looking at your labels. It's added fat. You're getting way more calories from added fats. You just, again, don't know it because they're not visible. You don't see them, right? We don't necessarily taste them, right? You know if something has sugar. You know if something, it just makes it more palatable, right? Yep. So I would say that is probably the number one reason. People put oil and butter on just about everything. Even you roast veggies. What are you going to do? You're going to drizzle EVOO on top of your veggies, right? You just took a 200-calorie sheet pan of broccoli, made it into a 1,000-calorie sheet pan of broccoli. Should you be eating the broccoli? Absolutely, but you understand what else you're adding to your food. For some reason, in the last 20 years, there's a really interesting study on this. In the last 20 years, there's something that has occurred called the Great Nutrient Transition. And around the year 2000, there was a really famous study that came out that linked high fructose corn syrup to an increase in the obesity epidemic and carbohydrate intake to an increase. And around the year 2000, our carbohydrate intake and our sugar intake starkly dropped.
Wow.
And for the last 20 years, we have actually been decreasing the amount of carbohydrates we're consuming. And yet obesity has started going up at even a faster rate. Well, what have we been replacing the carbohydrates with? We've been replacing them with fats, but we've actually been replacing them with more calories in the form of fat than there were in the form of carbohydrates. Yeah. It's not a carb problem. Technically it's not a fat problem. It's a calorie problem, wherever the calories are coming from. Yeah. It's not a single nutrient that's doing. Right now, it's mostly fats that are doing people in. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's kind of cyclical. Back in the 80s, everyone was afraid of fats, right? They put Olestra in the potato chips and everything. And then the 90s, 2000s started. We've been afraid of carbs for about 30 years now. Yeah. It'll probably swing back the other way, right? It's kind of like those videos you see where it's like in 1950, they were telling people don't eat eggs. Oh, never mind. Now you can eat eggs. Don't eat meat. Oh, never mind. Now you can eat meat. Don't eat carbs. Now, right? We go in this fear mongering cycle. So that's why it is important to bring an education to people and not just put a Band-Aid on it and make them lose 20 or 30 pounds by taking something away.
Yeah.
Right. 100%. That kind of sums it up, I think. Right?
Yeah, no, I think 100%. You know, I'm an entrepreneur. I run multiple companies, and I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. And it's funny, I see memes and I see things on Instagram and I see things where, you know, there's this world of entrepreneurs and business people and real estate or insurance or whatever type of entrepreneur you are, right?
Yeah.
That I feel like they struggle so much with health. Yep. But then you see people talking about, hey, health is wealth, and like don't get really unhealthy to get wealthy to then spend the rest of your life trying to get healthy again, right? And you see this. So like, why is that? And then how can entrepreneurs better stay healthy while they're in that build grind mode, getting to like that end result that they're after?
So I love this question, right? Yeah. A lot of my clients I work with are entrepreneurs, especially in my one-on-one. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. They own their own businesses, or like you, they own a dozen businesses. And it turns into an issue of time. And a lot of these people are under a misconception that if they can't be perfect, then it's not worth it. Right? They're under this, they think they have to follow all of these things. I call them unnecessary complexities. They're things like, oh, I know I need to eat every 3 hours. I know I need to cut out carbs. I know I need to do fasted cardio. I know I need to do, but now I'm so busy, I can't do fasted cardio anymore. But it's not going to burn fat if I do it later in the day. Or I can't eat 6 times a day, so now my metabolism is going to slow down. And if I, now I'm going to gain everything. And these are all 100% built on myths that are in the fitness industry, usually in order to sell something or something. But people believe them, right? And then they think if they can't stick to all those, well, what's the point? When life calms down, I'll get back on when I can stick to it, right? And that's why one of the first things I do is I go in, I do a myth busting section, and I go, look, these are what I call unnecessary complexities. You can do them if you want. Your friend might have done them and he might have seen great results. It doesn't mean you need to do it, right? You can do fasted cardio, I can do regular cardio. We're going to lose the same amount of weight at the end of a week if our calorie deficit is the same. You can eat 6 times a day. I can eat 3 times a day. We're going to lose the same amount of weight at the end of the week if our calories are the same. All of these things are things that have been built into people that they think they have to do. And then I think people go into this mindset of, if I can't be perfect, then why?
Not going to do it at all.
I'm not going to do it. It's kind of like when you're out at dinner and you're supposed to be on your plan. The moment you go off your plan, you now suddenly feel like, now I'm really going to go off.
I'm going to go all in.
Now I'm going to go all. It's the same thinking. Yeah. People think it's the all or nothing mentality. And that's what these restrictive diets do. They take away entire groups, or they make you only eat one group. And it's that same all or nothing mentality, just in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. So, as like, what advice, I guess, would you have like practically for an entrepreneur? Because another thing I see too is like, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm a personal testament of this, where when I was real, and I'm still young, but when I was real young, it's just, hey, I don't care about my health, right? Like, I just care about making a lot of money, and I care about changing the world, and I care about helping people, and then eventually I'll get healthy again, right? So like, I'm going to sacrifice my health to build the wealth, and then I'm going to go take the wealth and try to get my health
back. And then I'll get healthy again.
Right.
Yeah, I get so many dudes who are like 45. I mean, they joke and they go, I built this up while I built 6 business, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really terrible way to look at it, because you're going through your life not only probably with a body that you don't really want during those years. You probably wish you could be in a little bit better shape during that time, but you're taking how many years off the back end of your life while you're doing that, right? Like, you get up to 38 or 40, and then you're like, all right, now I've gained about 30 or 40 pounds.
If you're a real estate agent or a real estate wholesaler, then you know that lead generation is one of the most important aspects to any business. You know that you have to consistently generate leads on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. That way your team has people to call, and that way you're constantly getting new opportunities in your company. I actually partnered up with a company called Rocket Lead Services, and they have VAs that are outbound cold calling on your behalf every single day. In my experience, there's a lot of different ways that you can generate leads as an agent or as a wholesaler. You can do pay-per-click, you can drive for dollars, you can do text messaging, you can do Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and so much more. In my experience, I believe that cold calling is by far the #1 way to generate leads in 2022. Not only is it my favorite way, but it is the highest ROI from what I've ever found. So Rocket Lead Services is one of the best companies out there for doing just that. They have virtual assistants that get assigned to you and to you only, that are constantly calling motivated sellers to generate leads for your business. Again, this is for anybody looking to generate seller leads for their business. This is for a solo real estate agent looking to do a couple of deals a month, all the way to teams that have over 100 agents and you're looking to generate more leads for your team. Wholesalers that are looking to generate more seller leads, all the way to wholesalers that are looking to do many, many deals per month. Go to www.rocketleadservices.com and go ahead and book your free consultation. Again, that is www.rocketleadservices.com and book your free consultation. Now, let's get back to the show.
But yeah, you've lived the last 20 years, 30 or 40, with that extra weight on. Like, what's that doing to your joints? What's that doing to, if you don't have great genetics, what's that doing to you on the inside, right? And I think for those people, my #1 piece of advice would be, because they understand the value of investing yourself in something. Make the short-term investment in your health. Prioritize it. Make a priority this year. Make it a priority today, this month, whenever it is. Make the short-term investment to educate yourself. It's going to be a short-term investment, but in reality, anything that you're going to be able to keep up long-term, if you start to think about it, you have a basic understanding of it. You have a pretty good anything that you're going to be able to sustain, right? But you have a basic understanding of how to do it. Nutrition is no different. You can't just jump from one thing. Think about your businesses you built, right? Talking to that person. Were any of them able to be built by you going into no, none of them, right? They were all. I had to understand the industry first. I had to build that understanding, that foundation, and I had to get my numbers right and understand where my numbers were and where my numbers needed to be. anything else that these people have built up, they treated that same way. Well, let's go and treat food that same way.
Sure.
Let's go and, I'll break you. This isn't your industry. Your expertise is here and here. Mine's here. Let me show you how to do that same thing you did with these, where you built up these businesses. Let me show you how you do it with nutrition, and then send you on your way with the tools to be able to keep it for the rest of your life, right? And is it going to be a short-term investment? Yeah, but make it a priority, and then you'll be set for, the rest of your life, essentially, if you do it the right way.
I agree, and I think like I wish I would have gotten that advice, or really any advice on nutrition when I was like starting out as an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people I see it all the time with young people, right, where they completely ignore their health in pursuit of wealth, right? And then I think there's actually a meme about it where it's like, this dude spent X amount of years in pursuit of wealth, sacrificed his health, and then he spent the rest of his life spending all of his wealth to try to get his health back.
Whether it's surgery, whether it's going, absolutely, and you'll try everything. Whereas if that foundation had been established at the beginning, you never would have had to sacrifice it in the first place. And again, it will take a short-term investment of your time and your mental capacity and resources. But again, anything that you've built in life that's worth having probably took that, right? There's not really anything, and an entrepreneur understands that better than anybody, because they've built their business up, and they're going to start to go, you know what, you're right. I have not excelled in anything that I didn't have an understanding of, and I haven't been able to maintain or keep anything going. Maybe you might get into something, but you're not going to keep it going if you don't understand the numbers behind it, and you don't understand how to keep it regardless of what comes your way.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception probably there is just that you can't do both simultaneously. Like I can't be in build mode and do it over here. I can't do both at the same time.
You nailed, but when we take a lot of those rules away, those unnecessary complexities, right? When we take away, dude, I don't need you going to the gym at 4:30 to do your cardio. Right. Fit it in when you want. Hey, you know what? You had somebody cancel today. Go get your cardio. I don't care that you have food in your stomach. It doesn't make a difference. You forgot to bring your meal with you today. That's okay. You don't need to eat 6 meals a day. You know what? Just have a bigger dinner when you get home at night. Your metabolic rate does not slow down on an hourly basis. Like some of these things are just so nonsensical if you have an understanding of human nutrition. Yeah. And once you go in, you break all these barriers down for people. Guys, guys, girls, they kind of look at you and they go, wait a minute, so I don't have to do this, or this? And 9 times out of 10, they go, my last coach, my last trainer made me do all those things, which is so sad. There's so many people in the industry. But once you break those barriers down, I get these people who have been frustrated with their weight for 20 years who suddenly go, well, if somebody had explained it to me this way 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been overweight for the last 20 years. I didn't know this was all I had to do. And that's really, I get that from a lot of people, because so many people are under this, like you said, it's got to be one or the other. I can't have both at the same time. And there really is a way, trust me, from someone who's been on this extreme, somebody who's kind of in the entrepreneur pool with, everything, there is a way to do both. And it doesn't involve copious amounts of cardio. It doesn't involve taking Tupperware dishes with you anywhere. It doesn't involve any of that. It is so much easier than people make it out to be. Yeah. It really is.
What are your thoughts on alcohol and maintaining a healthy life, and just what effect, I guess, does alcohol have on the body?
So some of that's going to be a psychological thing, right? Whether you can maintain a healthy life with alcohol depends a lot on your own place that you're in. Yep. From a strict health perspective, there are a lot of negatives and there are really no positives, unfortunately. Yeah. But that being said, I don't remove alcohol from anyone's diet. If you want to include it as a part of your diet, you're just going to let's understand what it actually is and let's understand what it actually does. I get a lot of people who come, so many misconceptions. People who think clear liquor has less calories, right? Just things that are just completely made up off myths from like decades ago. People who think that there's carbs and that the calories in beer are coming from carbs, right? They're not coming from alcohols. So we go in and we kind of break down some of those misconceptions, and I kind of explain to people, look, it can be a part of your diet, but it's going to make things harder on you. If I'm being honest, it's pretty much only negative health effects, right? Yep. It makes it harder for you to repair muscle, right? So you're going to be getting less out of what you're doing in the gym, even though you're putting in the same amount of work, right? It inhibits muscle protein synthesis to a degree, which means you can go bust your ass in the gym. You're going to get less out of it if you go drink later that night, right? Yep. We need to acknowledge that. It dehydrates you significantly, which is poor for just about every function in your body. The next day, your performance is probably going to be hindered because you're going to wake up dehydrated. So not only did it take away from your workout yesterday, it's probably going to hinder your workout a little bit today. We know that we see a strength decrease and endurance decrease. A lot of that has to do with dehydration. A lot of that has to do with your body processing toxins. And then it's incredibly calorically dense. Right. People don't realize, and a lot of people, when you have mixed drinks and things, it gets out of control quick. I mean, a margarita is 400 or 500 calories. So from the weight loss perspective, understand that you want to have alcohol, you're going to have to eat less food to lose the same amount of weight, right? The other half of it is the decisions you make once you start drinking, right? And that's a little bit less quantifiable. That's a little bit less scientific, and that's person by person, right? There are some people who can say, I'm going to have 4 drinks tonight and still make great choices after they have 4 drinks. There's someone else, if they're 4 drinks in and they get home, they're going for the greasy whatever, and you've got to know yourself, and but that's where having the accountability and the support when you're going through that initial phase helps out so much. And I know that sounds biased coming from a coach, but it really, I mean, I have my own coach, because there are things I struggle with myself, and having that accountability when you're first learning how to overcome those things is incredibly valuable. Down the road, will you have the tools in place to maintain it on your own? Yes, but there's a reason people going through AA have a sponsor. Because initially, when you're trying to kick that, when you're trying to reprogram some of those habits, you're going to have periods where you need somebody. You have someone you need to reach out to, right? Yep. Same thing for food. Some people, it's going to be the same thing for alcohol. Sometimes it's both for some people.
And it could be anything, right? I mean, I think, another thing that I thought of while you were kind of explaining that is, I've met a lot of people in my world, at least, that take for example, like Adderall is a big one, right?
Yep. Where
it's like, hey, I'm just going to take Adderall. I'm going to power through this thing.
Yeah.
That becomes an addiction, right? And then you stop eating as much. So now from a dietary standpoint, again, we'll stay away from the psychological standpoint.
Right.
From a dietary standpoint, it's no good either, right?
100%. Yeah. Obviously, you start to run into nutrient deficiencies, and which will start to impact your performance, which then you might start taking more Adderall to make up for that. But that's going to run you into the same thing, and that's not healthy. Just because it's people becoming nutrient deficient and underweight instead of overweight doesn't make it any better, right? And we obviously don't want anyone being reliant on a substance like that they don't need to be able to live a happy life. That's gonna be more in regards though to the things that are missing from your diet. And understanding that if you are taking something like that, you do have a prescription, that whether it's going to cause you, we're talking about Adderall right now, but whether you're taking Adderall, it's going to cause you to eat less, or you're taking SSRIs or SNRIs or benzos that are going to cause your metabolic rate to be a little bit decreased.
Sure.
Same thing. You want to understand how it's going to impact your body so that you can come to some realizations of things you need to be aware of to still make the right choices. I would say probably 30% of the people I work with are on some sort of prescription, SSRI, SNRI, something like that. And there is absolutely a metabolic rate component to it. And it's something that I wish there was more research on, but there's intentionally not more. You'll hear on the commercials, may cause you to gain weight. You could run a research study and pin down exactly how much it decreases metabolic rate by. I end up having to decrease people, depending on their dose, by around 10 to 20% of what their BMR would normally be if they are taking SSRIs and things like that. That's something else a calculator's not going to take into account, right? So if you do have a special circumstance, if you're taking medication, if you have your own vice with food or alcohol, then I would definitely encourage people, have somebody who understands that side of things to work you through them, because you're going to face stuff that other people who might have gone through the same thing aren't facing. So make sure you have somebody who has an understanding of how to handle different types of population, whatever population you fall into, right? There's a lot of kids who were in great shape in high school. They became personal trainers at 22. Doesn't mean you know how to transform a 48-year-old female who's dealing, with whatever she has. That just because you can change yourself doesn't mean you have an understanding of human nutrition.
Are there averages and stuff? Like when you look at like working out, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is there, obviously everybody's going to be different. An athlete's going to train entirely different than a 70-year-old man 100%. Trying to stay in shape, right?
100%.
But are there different things that, like, for example, like in regards to fitness, that, a protocol that people could follow that generically or generally would be good and would keep people healthy,
More so on the dietary side of things, I guess I would kind of speak to two different populations. Yep. For people looking to lose weight, it's going to be establishing a calorie deficit. No matter how you slice it, even with hormonal dysfunction, with anything else going on, medication, a calorie deficit will cause you to lose.
And how can somebody figure out if they're in a deficit? Like, how do you know your caloric, your total output in a day?
So the easiest way to do it, and again, it's a little bit of investment, a little bit of work. The easiest way I would say would be to track your food for 2 to 4 weeks. Just everything you put, just commit to it. Tell someone else around you. Tell your spouse, tell your partner, tell whoever it is. Hey, you know what? I'm committing to this because I really want to pin this down and figure this out for good. Track your food for 2 weeks and weigh yourself every single day for 2 weeks. Now, don't panic when the scale goes up and down day to day, but at each one of those weeks, create an average of what that week was and compare those 4 averages. And with that amount of data, you'll be able to say, okay, when I eat this much, and I know it's that much because I put everything in my mouth, and I put everything in here, this is what my weight does in a trend, right? Not day to day, but in a week over week trend. That means I am either losing weight while eating this much or gaining weight. And 1 month of that, of committing to do that for 30 days, you'll have a pretty good understanding of metabolically where you're at. And then you can take that, and there's enough guides online that somebody who is that internally self-motivated and maybe doesn't have some of the vices we've discussed would be able to run with that and absolutely create the changes they want. And for someone else, they might lose 10 or 15 and then realize like, hey, I'm starting to hit a little bit of a wall here. I can't seem to get over this. And then they might need to reach out to some. But that will at least provide you with a basic understanding of metabolically where you are right now, regardless of what your circumstances are. Because even for people who do have problems hormonally, anything else, there is still a point that you will lose weight.
And it's so interesting. I think that, so many people, I think it's just miseducation out there, 100%. Right? Is really what I'm hearing over and over and over again. People are just miseducated. Even me, like coming into this podcast and listening to you talk, I'm learning, right? And I'm growing mentally. I'm understanding, hey, some of those myths aren't necessarily true, right?
Right.
And most of them aren't true, actually.
Most and you can tie most of them back to somebody making money.
Yeah.
If you want to follow the string, you'll eventually get to a supplement company that ran a study back in the 90s to show post-workout protein. You can always just follow it, and you'll eventually get back to somebody making money somewhere.
Yeah. So you started a gym, right? And you're working out, and you have one gym location right now, correct? In North Scottsdale.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been there 7 years.
What does that gym look like? Is it, you said in the beginning you help people really? I mean, one of your focuses is helping people lose weight.
I would say probably about 80% of our members are there to lose weight. We do get a lot of people. It's a private gym. It's not a big commercial gym. It's a private studio. It's by appointment only. We get a lot of people who don't want the gym atmosphere because they don't feel comfortable with it. Again, a lot of people who, I'm the same way. People always get a kick out of it, but I have ridiculous anxiety to this day. Going when I pull up to Lifetime, there are some days where I will just go back home that day. It's just I still have that fat kid mentality of being judged and having people look at you and things like that. And a lot of people just don't want that, so they reach out to us for that reason. And then a lot of people reach out to us because of the specialty in nutrition, right? Because of my own background, because of some of my experience I've had working with larger people. But yeah, we've been there for 7 years now, and I would say we do mostly work with people who are overweight.
When you talk about like anxiety and binge eating and stuff like that, I think that's probably something a lot of people deal with, I would imagine. Like,
I think it's not talked about enough for sure. Yeah, those have been my two biggest struggles, and they go hand in hand. The binge eating is to comfort the anxiety and to bring it down, right?
Interesting, yeah.
When you have a bunch of, it seems like the world's crashing down around you. For me, that was my kind of my dopamine. That was my calming. Some people it's alcohol, some people it's drugs, some people it's whatever their thing is.
Sure.
Mine is food, and I will knock out 10, 15,000 calories, which sounds crazy.
Yeah.
In 20 minutes, like
wow.
Literally, it looks like somebody who hasn't seen food in, and it's just panicked going from one thing to the next, and then all of a sudden, kind of you feel calm and you feel. But now you've just undone how much work of really making good decisions and now you're gonna have to go and undo all of that again. And it took me, even after I lost my weight, I regained 70 pounds.
Wow.
At one point. I lost it, and then I regained 40 again at one point, right? So you gain an understanding each time of how to get a little bit better. And now I feel like I've been able to take that and make my coaching really kind of bulletproof against some of those things, right? Like I saw that with myself, and I saw it with so many of my initial clients, and I was like, how do we put measures in place to stop this from happening? Yeah. We all know someone who's lost weight and gained it back, and we see them, and they're frustrated.
I've been there.
They're frustrated with themselves, and they will go, wow, God, you see a picture or something, you go, wow, that was an incredible, what was I? Well, yeah, but I was doing this, and I couldn't keep that. And that's pretty much what they always say. Well, yeah, but I was giving up. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing that. Well, why did you give that up? Were you planning to never drink again? No, but do something you're gonna be able to stick with, right? So
it's not sustainable, right? It keeps going back to
that's the word. It just keeps coming back to, right?
It not being sustainable, right? Yeah. Like, how do you create a sustainable lifestyle?
Your lifestyle to look like?
It's so interesting.
Is the plan you're using to get there going to allow you to keep living your lifestyle while you're getting there? But also, are you going to stay on that plan when you finish, right? Once you achieve your result, are you eating in a way that you're going to keep eating that way because you're eating things that you're going to eat instead of this meal plan that somebody from a gym gave you, And now it's time to go back to living normal. And then 6 to 8 months from now, I'll get back on another meal plan because I'll be frustrated with myself again. And it's just going back and forth.
So people that maybe aren't going to the gym at all, like what would you recommend for them to get back into it, right? I know a lot of people, for me at least, like I'll go, there's been times in my life where I haven't gone to the gym in 6 months, right? And then I flip a switch and I'm like, I got to go every day of my life, right?
Yeah.
And I got to just like,
I tell people to start off, if you're just getting back into it and you don't have a past experience of being like a gym rat, right? Like let's say it's not because of an injury or something and you were going 6 times a week. It's been a couple years, you've gained some weight, you haven't been there in a while. I always encourage people 3 days a week, do about probably 45, 60 minutes of lifting if you can last that, and anywhere from probably 15 to 30 minutes of cardio 3 days a week. It should take about an hour of your time. It really shouldn't take any more than that. It should be mostly focused on lifting, probably about 75-25 lifting, cardio. Still get some cardio in.
Yep.
And start off with that and do that for the month that you choose to track your food. People did that 3 days a week, lifting, a little bit of cardio, track your food and track your weight. Most people would have the blueprint right there. And it's committing to that for 30 days, which again, you can give someone the blueprint. It's the execution, right?
Yeah.
It's not about having the knowledge. It's about being able to execute. But if most people did that exact protocol we just laid out there, they by the end of that month would either know what to do themselves, or they would be able to provide that to somebody who could blueprint out and map out their entire transformation. That right there is enough data on somebody.
It's so simple. What would you say, like, one of the biggest things, like, for me for a long time, I think cardio was one where you hit it a little while ago, where it's like, I got to do fasted cardio, or I got to do this, or I got to do that, right?
Yeah.
But I think I heard you say on a podcast one time that, like, what was it? It was the 3-12 rule. Was it the 3-12?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of 3-12.
Yeah, so talk to me about the 3-12. Like,
for people who are capable, it doesn't need to be 3-12. It can be 3 whatever, or you know what, if you can't walk 3 miles an hour right now, it can be, I have people who start off 2.5 with no incline.
Sure.
But it's an idea of walking as your form of cardio. And one of the reasons I like it, like I said, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Yep. We can do everything from our phones. So you put a treadmill, you do your workout, you knock out your weights, you go hop up on the treadmill, you commit yourself to 15 minutes, walking 3 miles an hour, 12% incline. You pull your phone out, you get back to all the emails that you've been ignoring while you were working out. You get back to making content, maybe editing a new reel for yourself if you're on Instagram or whatever, right? No one can bother you. You're on a treadmill, you're on an island by yourself. You got to get stuff done. You're just sitting there looking straight ahead. You may as well get stuff done. Not only are you being productive, right, but you're getting the same calorie expenditure you'd be getting running at 6 miles an hour. Right? So it's the caloric equivalent. If you're at 312, right?
Yep.
It's the caloric equivalent for the average person of running at 6 miles an hour, but you get 2 things done at once.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm a really big fan of that. So that's what all my cardio is 312. Regardless, sometimes all of a sudden I look up and I've been going for 25 minutes or something, right? Instead of like, I don't do a lot. Normally I'm 10 to maybe 12 minutes if I do something like that. But all of a sudden you look up because you got caught up in what you were doing.
Sure.
And you get off there not only with that kind of that high you get from doing cardio, but you just got a bunch of stuff done too that you probably had been putting off because you just didn't want to do it. So that's always I would say 90% of my clients, that's their form of cardio.
Is there any benefit of doing like this like HIIT style cardio where like I'll get on the Stairmaster and go like level 10 and then I'll get my heartbeat way up and then I'll drop it down and go up and drop down?
So high intensity interval training is kind of misunderstood. So the really true high intensity interval training is done where the portion you're exerting yourself doesn't last longer than 20 seconds. And the reason for that is the whole point of high intensity interval training is to push yourself to a new threshold so that your body has to make adaptations. Similar to if I gave you a 10-pound dumbbell to curl and you curled it for 4 weeks and then I gave you a 15-pound dumbbell, your body would say, oh, he's going to be curling a 15-pound dumbbell now. We better go in and make the muscular adaptations to prepare for that again. You're kind of trying to do the same thing with cardio.
Yeah.
So you have to push to a new threshold or your body's not going to have to adapt, right? That's where you get that afterburn effect as your body goes in and lays down the things necessary to make your cardiovascular health more efficient. You keep burning calories. In the same way, when you go and tear down muscle, it takes calories to put the muscle back together. That's the benefit from HIIT. The problem is you've got to push yourself to a new threshold, which means you've got to go as hard as you can. Well, you can't go as hard as you can for a minute, right? Otherwise, by definition, it can't be as hard as you can go.
Sure, yeah.
So true high-intensity interval training usually is done about 15-second intervals of burst followed by 45-second rest. That has an incredible benefit if you can mentally push yourself to a true 100% during that.
Yeah.
But if you're on like the Airdyne or something, the person next to you should look at you like you're crazy. Like you should be going like your life depends on it, right? And you'll be shocked if you truly do hit like that, you might get 5 or 10 minutes and you will just be
done.
gassed. And we really don't want to do more than that, because it does those adaptations I talked about. It taxes your central nervous system in a similar way that going in and having to repair muscle tissue taxes your central nervous system, or whatever it may be. So we want to use it sparingly, but it's incredibly efficient for a short period of time. You get a lot of calories burned, not only in that time, but in the adaptations that are then going and being made following that. So you kind of get a lot of bang for your buck. You can do 5-10 minutes and burn a couple hundred calories.
Interesting. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the cold plunge? I feel like it's so popular right now. I got a cold plunge, Yeah. And everybody's talking about the cold plunge. At least I hear everybody talking about the cold plunge. Like, does it help? I mean,
so I'll be honest, I'm not terribly well versed in cold plunge. That's not something I've done a lot of research on. I'm a huge proponent of cryotherapy.
Okay.
I do cryo 3 to 5 days a week. And from what I understand, again, this is not my area of expertise, is that a cold plunge is made to elicit some of the same sort of not only mood improvement, but regenerative effects that a cold plunge does. It just gets you there a little bit faster and without the water. So from that perspective, the anti-inflammatory effects, the improvements in mood, things like that, absolutely incredible. Any sort of extreme cold, exposing your body to extreme cold, is going to create that. Is there going to be a little bit of increased caloric expenditure? Yes. Nothing you're going to know. You'll see some of these people do an ice bath for this many minutes and burn it. No. Otherwise, all these people doing ice baths would be having to completely start eating way more food, or they would be losing massive amounts of weight, which we also would use it as an intervention to treat overweight people, because we would just put them in cryo chambers over and over again, which it doesn't work that way. But for all the other benefits, I had full patellar tendon reconstruction a year and a half ago. I will tell you, when I started doing cryo, my recovery tripled. I mean, it was the little pain, the inflammation, everything. And it was within doing it one time. I was a skeptic I'm still not going to get in a cold plunge, but I was a skeptic for a long time, and I was blown away at the effect it had. And there's the research out there. Once I finally got talked into doing it, I'm like, how am I feeling this good? I dove into it, and the extreme cold, there is a lot of research behind it. So assuming that a cold plunge provides a lot of the same benefits, which my basic understanding is that it does, then I would encourage you to, if you're somebody who can stand that, go for it. If not, go find a cryo chamber near you, because the cryo chamber is really not, there's no moisture to it. So it's not painful to be inside of.
Sure. Yeah.
Sense.
I know you're just in a chamber. I've done both.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I've done the walk in, where you walk all the way into the
that's the one I do. You close it behind you, and you've got to wear the headgear and everything like that. So I do one of those. I probably do it 5 days a week.
Wow.
And the little rush you get right when you get out of it is like, you're just going around. I'll go to the store afterwards. I'll be talking like, hey, how are you ladies? I'm like talking to like 2 old ladies, because you're just in a good mood.
You are.
Yeah. And the anti-inflammatory effects and the improvements in my sleep. Was the other thing. I noticed that any night that I do it that day, the next day I wake up and I feel like I slept 12 hours.
Yeah.
And that was pretty incredible for me. So anyone who's never tried it, whichever form you feel like you want to go, definitely. As somebody who was, kind of made fun of it for a long time, I have been converted.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what I know we're getting a little long here. What are your goals now moving forward? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do? You have a gym, you're helping people. I mean, what's the end goal here?
Obviously, to be able to continue, we've got 8 trainers over at the gym now, who all do an incredible job of working with, and we're creating transformations every day that are absolutely incredible, which is really cool. But I really have found a passion for working one-on-one with people who have a little something extra, right? Something that they couldn't get figured out with somebody else, right? Because I kind of view myself as having been in that, right? Like I had a few things that were like, I'm not the normal weight loss story. Like I had a couple extra humps to get over, and I really enjoy, it doesn't have to be somebody who's massively overweight, although I will say my 500, 600 pound client, I really enjoy working with that population. But my goal is to be able to work with more and more people and touch more and more people, whether it's through social media, who kind of feel like there's no hope for them, right? Yeah. The type of person who, and I think that's why I get so much out of my 400, 500, 600 pound clients, is because they have been to everyone. I mean, anyone who's that big, you've tried just about everything. And a lot of these people are in their 40s, 50s, and they had just kind of given up. and then they see all the other transformations that are so similar, and like, maybe this guy can actually get me there. And those are the people where I feel like I help somebody who without me would not have gotten there. So whether that is reaching them via, social media, television media, or working with them one-on-one and counseling them on a daily or a weekly basis, just to be able to touch more and more people who otherwise kind of would have thought there was no hope.
I love that.
If that makes sense.
That's
I know
awesome.
that sounds so cliche, but I really do enjoy helping. I mean, there are certain people you and I know who don't struggle with food. They don't struggle with nutrition, right?
They struggle with other things.
They struggle with other things. They don't need me. They need someone else whose expertise is somewhere else. I really want to get those people who their struggle is the nutritional side of things.
And I think a lot of people struggle with it. I mean, a lot more than people are aware of.
It's definitely not. It's not talked about, and it's not viewed the same way as something like alcohol addiction or drug addiction. But food addiction is a very real thing. Yeah. And we need to kind of change the way we talk about it, because I think there are a lot of people out there, like you said, a lot of people probably struggle with anxiety and binge eating disorder, and have never said it to anyone or never even really thought about it that way. Like, I do binge every time I get really, really anxious and stressed, right? And I absolutely love reaching those people.
Yeah, and I think, and then in those people, then that turns into more a lot of times. Now they're depressed, and now they have a number of different, right?
Yep, whichever direction you're going, it's going to snowball.
Yeah.
So get a handle on it sooner rather than later. I mean, I was incredibly fortunate that I kind of had the diagnosis I did at the age I did.
Yeah.
Because the trajectory I was on, I would probably be at my age right now, would be morbidly obese. I could see myself staying on that trajectory. So,
which is crazy
to be able to catch someone else who's on that same route and put them on a completely different pathway. It's going to allow them to live a much longer life and happier life. Is just
it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah,
what you
cool.
do is incredible.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, Matt?
So you can check me out at Matt Hoodie on Instagram, MattHoodieFitness.com, and then the gym in Scottsdale is Transform Scottsdale. And if you just Google us, and you'll see all the transformations on any of those places, everyone I've worked with, and you'll see my own story on there too. So
I love that.
I've been there before.
Yeah, you have a really cool story, and guys, if you're watching, make sure you definitely go check out Matt. Follow him on Instagram. Let him know that you came from the show. And Matt, is there anything else that you want to share with anybody before you go?
I appreciate you having me on, giving me the opportunity. Hopefully, it reaches some people and does some good.
It definitely will. So, hey, thank you so much for watching. Drop down in the comment section below if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. If you're watching on podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anything like that, make sure you leave a review. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. I appreciate you coming on, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay.